just
Yeah, to record.
be involved in all the minute decisions of the project, and that there becomes a lot of back and forth communications, like nitpicking the different options, or can we do that option, but can we do this thing? And in my experience, like that is just opening the floodgates for like a very tiresome back and forth communication between you and the client. Um, in my experience, like I actually feel like the better, the smoother and better delivered project comes when the client actually just kind of says, "Oh, you're the expert. Like, tell me what makes the most sense with my budget." So we get budgets from people, and if they are not really satisfied with like what we're doing with that budget, then we can like amend. But a lot of times we will say like, "Oh, well, here's your design. Like to install this design, we're looking at, between 20 and $30,000." And because you already have a design you're working off, right?
Yep, already got the design. A
And do
good
they
friend of
have a
mine's been in.
budget that they've given you for what they're willing to invest?
So I did my first site walk with them after two phone conversations. I did the first site walk Monday, and one of the last parts of business that we took care of while I did the site walk was, okay, this is what I have to know. This
Yeah.
is the only gray area part right here, and other than that, we just need to make sure that we do this, all up front now. Make the planning, make the management overview, all that stuff now, so we're clear and I can run. I don't need to be zigzagging all the way through the project. So that's where you lose the money, huh? The back and forth.
Oh my gosh. You lose your mind is what you lose. Like all of this stuff, I don't know if you have been paid anything by this client yet. Have you been
No,
paid anything? So
no.
you've already got two phone conversations invested. You've already got a site walk invested. And then you're gonna, spend what is usually going to be a long time, like dicing up these three different options. Then they're going to get back to you. Then there's going to be a back and forth. By the time you have any money from them, you could have invested a number of hours, and at any point they can just walk away. Right? I
So
mean,
well said. Yeah, of
this
course.
happens to me all the time. They're like, "Hey, we love what you're doing, but our AC went out and it's going to cost us $8,000 to replace our air conditioning for our house, and we have to put this on hold till next year." I can't tell you how common that is. So my whole philosophy in my experience doing this is all about creating what I call like a frictionless communication with them. I want to talk to the client in that first conversation, like, what are your highest priorities? If your highest priorities are like, I want a vegetable garden, and that's like my number one thing. I want to be growing vegetables with my kids. And then there's all these other things. Okay, well, let's start. Like, you got a $20,000 budget. The vegetable garden is going to be 10. And then you're going to like use your best discretion because you're the trusted expert in their eyes of like where can you allocate the best use of funds. It might be like, oh, I see in the design that there's like all this, edging around your in-ground beds. Like, we could scrap that, do that in phase two, because that's like $4,000 worth of edging, with the labor. And let me tell you how you can make the most of this 20 grand that you're willing to invest so that you can hit as many of your phase one goals as possible. Present that to them. Then you can say, do you have any feedback? Sometimes they might have feedback and they might say, oh, I feel like this garden is more expensive than I was wanting to pay. What is there anything that you can think of? And then you might say, well, right now your garden beds are 18 inches tall. Like, we could make them 12 inches tall, and then that would reduce a lot of lumber and soil cost, and you'd still be able to grow, just as productive of a garden. You might say, hey, all of the flowers that are growing around your fruit trees, those could be a phase two. Why don't we just do like, we'll plant all the fruit trees, we'll, use some cardboard and mulch around the fruit trees to kill off the grass, but then, you can call us a year later and we'll come plant all those flowers and herbs to fill in your landscape. But like, give them the kind of like, here's the phase one that meets your highest goals and your budget.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, if I know exactly what the budget is, I shouldn't make 3 different quotes for that one budget. Be clear with one plan, one design, and if they want to modify certain parts of it or have some feedback of it, then we decide to do that right from the beginning. And that way there's no questions and no confusion. That makes a lot of sense. Boy,
Yeah.
when I buy, can you tell the way I do things when I buy stuff from people?
The thing about the food forest stuff, right, is that people have no clue. They're not going in to buy a TV and they've spent their life watching TV and talking to their friends about which TV they have, and they know what kind of connections are needed for a TV. Like, people are generally clueless. And so you open up this can of worms by presenting all these options, because then it creates more questions than answers for them.
Gotcha.
That's been my experience, at least.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that insight a lot.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
great.
how you doing tonight? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate y'all's time.
Oh yeah, feel free to stick around, Jonathan. Now, if you unless you got to run, I was saying hi. I said hi to Lucy, who is another person that joined us here tonight.
Yeah.
Mhm. And Jonathan, if you have other questions, we welcome them if they pop up about springtime and how chaotic it can be. I know you're kind of just getting started, but while we wait, Matt, for a question from Lucy, I know there have been questions in the community about like how to juggle like springtime weather and how scheduling conflicts come up when you have like storms like we have had in St. Louis here. And I wonder how you all are working with that at Custom Foodscaping.
Well, we're always figuring it out. It's definitely not a perfect science, that's for sure. And we don't have like some silver bullet answer, but I will say that one of the things that has really helped us is to space out the different types of jobs that we have if possible. This is where like having a diversity of jobs is really helpful. So we've got some jobs that are kind of like rain garden type jobs where we need to do digging, and others that are very like carpentry heavy and we need to do a lot of cutting and prep. So it's really nice to be like, oh, it's too wet today, so I'm gonna like transfer some of my energy to being undercover and like getting carpentry things cut. We do a lot of things where we'll like go get lumber and then we'll cut and mark everything. Is and basically like create a um almost like a prefabbed garden, so that when we get there we don't need to like measure and cut everything on site. So that really helps us weather the storm of those tough days. We've also gotten into the habit of like, if we have earth moving days or like groundwork that needs to be done, we try to do those way ahead of the actual install, like a week ahead of the install. So that way, like when we come back, like we can do the digging and while it's dry, and then usually we have like planting and mulching can be done like while it's still wet, or even if it's like raining a little bit. So it's kind of that setup day that we try to get scheduled well ahead of time, so that we're not scheduling our planting and mulching right on the heels of digging, because if you do that, then like everything gets pushed and it creates this whole bottleneck that's been really frustrating. Those are some of the main things that have popped up for us in terms of getting that scheduled. But
That's good. I think that will be really helpful to people. I like one of the reasons we wanted to do this webinar is like there's so much preparedness you can do before the spring season, it seems like, to get ready. And I wondered if you could speak to that. What happens like in February, March, even April to
Mhm.
make it less crazy now?
One of the things that we're always getting better at is um, spending time doing things like sharpening all of our tools. You know, these things sound obvious as I say them out loud, like having, like actually like sharpening all of your shovels, sharpening all of your hose, sharpening all of your pruning blades. Maybe the number one thing of all the things I can do is make sure that every wheelbarrow is in perfect working condition. You know, we've got like probably 8 wheelbarrows at this point, and it's like we use the hell out of those barrows. So we go through, we make sure every nut is really tight. We make sure all that tires are in good condition. We have and just get them like as tight and as well working as we possibly can. If there's nuts that are like factory nuts on there, we'll get lock nuts, which are the kind of nuts that have like rubber little ends in them so that they really don't pop off. We will like try to do any prefab of irrigation things that we can. Like, I mean, so many of our garden beds are 8 feet long, you know, so you can come in and like you could spend a day just like cutting 8 foot strips of irrigation line so that you just can literally just like grab a bundle of 10, you know, make little bundles of irrigation line that are 8 feet long, and then know that you've got all those pre-cut and you can just pop them right on. Um, those are the kinds of things that will really allow you to have gains during the spring season and make use of time in the winter. Not to, I mean, another obvious one is like vehicle care. Like nothing it causes us to lose more money than when we have a vehicle that is on the fritz. So
Yeah.
like spending the money in February for us to like get those vehicles serviced, like anything that could go wrong, like talk to the mechanic, like what, and make sure that, because those fixes are so much more than the cost of the fix itself. They cost us springtime work. And for us, it's like there's no replacing spring. Like the excitement level, the interest level, the amount of calls and the amount of emails, the amount of people that just like want us in their life in spring is so much higher than any other time of year. So um anything we can do to just like maximize productivity is other things that we're thinking about.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, I feel like adding from the marketing side, as I've been working on with marketing for many years with CF, like we always send alerts and notifications out like kind of like late fall of the previous year saying, get on our calendar for spring to help the client. Like not, I mean, so many people reach out to us now wanting a garden and like we can't help them until like September. And so like getting the client communication on board, really the season, the end of the season before, I feel like can help calm sort of that chaos, and getting it on social media, like book now.
Yeah, you know, the thing is about that, what ends up happening is it oftentimes has created more stress for me because
Really?
basically we have all these people. I'm not saying that I still think it's a good thing, but I'll get to how to relieve the stress. But basically it's a very good thing to go into the spring, you know, booked up, right? That's ideal. Like we don't want to have holes in our calendar.
Yeah.
But it's very stressful to me to be booked out, and then like somebody emails me on March 1st and they're like, we've been thinking about working with you for the last year. We're so excited to finally put in a garden this spring. Like our kids are dreaming about these raspberries, all these things. And then you're like, sorry, like it's going to be months. And they're just crushed. They're
Totally.
like, what? I emailed you March 1st. Like I thought this is the beginning of the year. And
Yeah.
so that used to really stress me out. And then basically I just feel like we just send out an email, kind of like a form email that tells people before they schedule and do anything with us. Like when we're booking far out, I don't even give them consultation dates. I don't do anything until I tell them, hey, this is where we're at right now. Like, I'm not going to be able to do a consultation for you until for like X number of weeks, and our installs are booking this far out. That way, you don't ultimately make the biggest mistake you can, which is spend your springtime doing a consultation and then putting together a proposal for that client. And then you put together the proposal and then you tell them your installation is not going to be till July. And then they're like, well, fuck that. Like how are you going to lay that on me now? Like, and then you've just lost all that time. You didn't get a client. You upset, you kind of like, you didn't do anything malicious, but you didn't, but when you tell them like right away, we're booking out this far, you save yourself, you weed out the people who aren't really like, I'm in it to win it with you. I really want to work with your company. And then what ends up happening is those people, a lot of times they go away and you didn't want to work with them anyway, or they email you like a month later and they're like, what's up? I still there's no other foodscaper I'm working with, so I guess I'm just seeing where you're at. And then they do that. So yeah, and I think one other thing that we've had a lot in years past, and depends on the size of the company, where you're at in your evolution of your foodscaping company, but like having somebody like part-time flexible to work like 1 or 2 days a week, who's like very flexy, and they're the kind of person you can be like, look, I need you to go like pot up all these plants that just got here, because I have to go like run to this job, and I need you to just like throw all these plants in these pots. I need you to go, here's my list at Home Depot, like I need you to go do a hardware store run for me. And like it's those things that like free you up to do the actual work you need to do, that finding a person like that for just the spring can be just really get the wind under your sails, allow you to do the work you're meant to do and not get bogged down. And then when you look back on it, it's like, oh, I spent like $2,000, on a little helper person this spring. And it was way easier to make that $2,000, with me out in the field, like doing my thing. So it always pays for itself in my experience, tenfold, to have that person.
Great. Lucy, you have a question? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, I have so many questions. I'm so glad there's such intimacy here that I can ask. Thanks, guys. I've been following you forever, and I'm very impressed with everything you're doing. I own a company called Reimagined Roots, and I'm out of Worcester, Massachusetts. And we're in year 4. And a big client related thing that I've been struggling with this spring is inevitably weather is a huge factor.
Yeah.
Plant delays are a huge factor. That's something that I'm learning in a really big way, where some of the nurseries that I'm working with, are like, that plant's just not available until August. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of a all back. Like, I have 5 yarrow to plant. I don't, whatever. And so we use Jobber, and we have automated texts and emails that get away from me really quickly. And clients are like, I got a text 3 days ago that you would be here tomorrow, whatever. And then I'm like, oh, whatever, Friday, the night before, I'm reprinting a job packet, everything's changing because of weather and all of these things. And I end up with these clients that are pretty frustrated. And my solution on one end at one point was just turning off all automated reminders. But then it's 6:30 in the morning and I'm texting them like, hey, we'll be there at 7. And that's not a good solution. So I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts about this.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, Matt, before you answer, can I ask you, Lucy, are you with Nate Fournier? Fournier?
Yeah,
Same, you guys
yeah.
used to be Home Harvest, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
So we
cool.
um I started Reimagined Roots just doing design independently before I started with Nate. And then we rebranded and have kind of taken off, and we're branching out into a lot of the native gardening and kind of forcing foodscaping upon people rather
Mm.
than seeking us out for foodscaping specifically. But anyway, yes.
Okay,
So
cool.
you're saying that are you're saying a lot of people are kind of reaching out with like, we want a native landscape, and then you're including food plants in their native landscape.
Yeah, a huge part of what we do is education. And doing that just kind of on a community local level. There's a couple of community gardens we work with and stuff. And so selling people on including food and medicine because of all of the benefits that it gives. Our mission is revolutionizing the American grass lawn for a more resilient future. And so selling everybody on the resilience of that combination of native plants and food and medicine.
Cool. Love
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Well, we've definitely been connected with Nate a little bit, and he's awesome, and we've had such a great experience. So it's such a pleasure to connect with you.
Yeah, super.
Well, we can work backwards a little bit. I think it's funny, like, everybody's gonna have their own way of doing this, but to me, like the jobber thing is just a nightmare. I don't use Calendly or like any of those scheduling apps because it makes me really stressed out for these reasons. And I guess so one of the big ways that we handle this is we have an office day on Monday. So like no installs, no out in the field things. Like pure office day on Monday, an organizational day, communication day. So we're looking at the week ahead, we're looking at the weather, and we're getting those messages out if for the both this week and the following week. So if you're the following week, I'm going to tell you, hey, we're looking at, we're planning to be out mid next week. I'll touch base on Monday to confirm. Or it's like I'm touching base again and I'm just saying like, hey, we're planning on, I know I told you we're going to be there on Thursday, but it looks like rain on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we need to still finish last week's job. So, it looks like we're gonna, have to push you into next week, and then for me, like as somebody, if I'm running the jobs, then I also pretty much don't do any jobs on Fridays so that I can then do follow-up communication on a Friday and get everybody like going into the weekend with like, here's what's going on. And go and not have to worry about those communications. So I just do them. I mean, we just literally like sending emails and
Yeah.
because the opposite of the labor intensive email send is where you're at, which is in my experience is worse. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything valuable there, or even if you want to riff on how that could be improved, I'm open.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious about, I guess, the size of the crew that you're running and kind of how to occupy them when you're having that time. So a piece of that as well is last week, or no, this week. This has been like the longest week of my life. We just switched to 4-day weeks. So
Yeah.
Nate and I office on Monday, and our crew didn't come in until Tuesday, and then we're doing 4-10s.
Yeah.
And it's been a little disorienting, but I think there's a lot of potential in that Monday office day. But yeah, what are you doing with your crew on those days that you're not working jobs? Like, how are you kind of navigating that?
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on the person. Like, for one of the people on our team, that is, they're doing like a lot of invoicing and communications time. Like that's our maintenance lead. So we are doing like seeing like many maintenance clients a week. And so they are touching base with every maintenance client. They're, saying, hey, this is when we think we're going to be there. Do you have anything you want us to address? Do you have any pictures you can send us of like problematic areas or things going on so that we can see a picture and show up with the right tools and the right materials. We are sending all of the previous week's invoices. So on Monday, we send all the invoices that needed to be sent for the previous week. So that's happening with one person. Another person is doing things like nursery management, like organize all the craziness of all the plant pots and the trays that came back last week. Pot up things that are outgrowing their pots. Oh, we pull all the plants ahead of time for the following week. So Monday, we do our plant organizing. So let's say that today is, well, let's just say this coming Monday. This coming Monday, we'll print out a list of all the plants needed for the following week's job. Okay. And then we'll gather all those plants, wrap a tie around them, label them, and figure out what don't we have? Like, what are we short? What do we need? We've got a week to problem solve what plants we don't have. And that way I can like get back to the, the emails or whatever, go run to a nursery, I still have time to contact a wholesale supplier and get wholesale pricing, because I'm like, oh, you know what? We ended up, we don't have these plants, blah, blah, blah. I could even like get a plant shipped. I've got enough time to potentially get a plant in time. So we're doing that. We're doing hardware store runs. We're doing lumber runs. So I'm sending people in the truck to go pick up lumber. I'm sending people in a truck to go, here's a list of what we need at the hardware store. It could be like service vehicle, like a vehicle's getting serviced. Oh, it could be our own servicing. It could be like, we have an air compressor. Like, we need to inflate all the tires on the trucks. We need to, clean out all the junk that's in the trucks, like get them cleaned out. So a lot of times we come back at the end of the week and there's just like, there's receipts everywhere. There's whatever, like, mix of soil and mulch and compost in the back of 2 of the trucks. And it's like, okay, let's get that swept out. Let's get start anew this week. That is, and then the last thing I'll say is like, not everybody on our crew works Mondays. Like we have part-time, we have 3-day-a-week people who, for this very reason.
Cool. And then when you get rain days stuff, like say you have Monday and then you have Friday and then it rains all day on Wednesday, you just kind of problem solve that as it goes.
Yeah, we might meet midweek and be like, you know what, let's just regroup today. Let's go. Everybody's going to be like cutting lumber. Like we've got lumber for that job in a month and we know that those beds are all 3x8. Let's just get all that lumber cut and then we'll go to the job site with everything perfect. Let's pre-drill everything. Let's shoot screws and everything. And then when we get to that job site, we're going to be hours ahead. Let's do whatever we can to get ahead. Sometimes we'll like do our Monday on a Friday and be like, you know what? All this rain, like this is crazy. Let's meet on Friday. Let's do all the stuff I just described to you is happening on Mondays. Let's do it on Friday this week. And then we're going to have an install day on Monday.
Yeah.
And so then we're going to be ready for Monday to hit the ground running.
Sure. Cool.
Stuff like that. I will I will answer one of your other questions too, Lucy, which is that, and I feel so passionately about this one, which is because I made the mistake for many years. We do not give people like exact planting plans. I've become like super passionately against this. So if you're trying to plant, like, let's call it like an edible meadow, right? We use photos to be like, here's what your edible meadow is going to look like. We send them in the proposal. We say like, here's 8 to 12 of the species that we hope to include in your meadow planting. And that's it. And then they're like, and the reason this is so important, and maybe you already are doing this, is then those 5 yarrow don't trip me up. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have 5 yarrow, but I have 5 coreopsis. I'm gonna grab those 5 coreopsis, and that's gonna have to work. Like
Yeah,
the perfection of like, here's exactly what I thought I was gonna plan for them. It's out the window.
totally. Yeah, that's great. Do you guys do design as well with clients? Like
Yeah,
proper design? Yeah. Okay.
we do offer design, but if somebody wants an exact planting plan,
A lot
um
of
it's gonna cost them a lot of money. And a lot of times, like, the truth is 3 out of 4 clients have no clue about the difference between rudbeckia and echinacea. Like, if
yeah.
you put 5 rudbeckia here, and then you're like, I don't have the rudbeckia, but I've got the echinacea. Okay, grab the echinacea. Like, when you show up for the planting day, they're not going to know the difference. And it may
Yeah.
not, and it's not like you're sacrificing anything. Obviously, I'm not encouraging
Yeah.
anybody to compromise on quality, but just like not locking yourself into specific plants, because plant sourcing is such a shit show. Um, and it's hard enough, like, getting like 40 different species of plants together, like, and then locking yourself in is really, um, yeah, really strong, really stressful and challenging.
Totally. I appreciate that. And I've been using I don't even know, your lumber and plant inventory that you sent out after one of the recent calls, and that's like totally changed the game. So that's
Oh,
awesome.
I'm so glad.
Thank you.
You bet.
That was great, Matt. Thank you. Lucy also it made me think about we have a really good webinar on sourcing foodscaping plants. Here, I'll put it in the chat. That was like I think one of our favorites of a crowd pleaser. And Matt gives some really good info there about like some of our tricks for, yeah, having plants year round. Where's the chat? There it is.
Yeah. But
Cool.
if you're planting a lot of native plants and stuff like that, it's so local specific.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, another reason why you having like a diversity of types of jobs is really nice. Like, I know that, Nate at least was doing, some degree of like, vegetable gardens. And that's why, like, I love, oh, it's an in-ground vegetable garden is like the dream project to have in the hopper, because you don't need plants and you don't even need lumber. You can literally just like go build a garden, like get the soil, get the compost, get the the irrigation. Like, you don't, and so sometimes you need to like insert a project like that to buy yourself some time to get some more plants, or when you need to like weather the storm of what's going on, and you're like, we don't have our lumber, or we don't have our plants, like we can just go do something. And so it's nice to have those jobs and to be talking to clients sometimes who are the right client about like in-ground gardens without any raised bed material.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Alan, thanks for joining us. Do you have a question?
Not right now. Yeah. But
Cool. Well, we're glad you're
probably
here.
will come up with some. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, if anybody else has a question, feel free to get off camera or get off mute and hop in. Yeah, we've talked about plants, preparedness. Matt, anything else coming up for you? Weather, plants, preparedness. I wonder if you have thoughts about like keeping clients' expectations. Is that part of the spring experience? Like, I don't know, managing expectations when you like put a big install on. I mean, we've talked about that a lot. You put like a big fruit tree install on, and it looks so puny and people are bummed out. But maybe it's not so related to the chaos of the season. We're kind of keeping
Well,
the theme.
I think that one of the really big roadblocks that happens every spring, or just one of the more frustrating things, is that every year that we've been in business, we have more and more previous clients, right? And they're always coming out of the woodwork
Hmm.
in the spring to be like, hey, you know, your irrigation system that you installed for me 3 years ago, like this is happening. Can anybody come like get it fixed? Or they'll message me a picture like, is my timer broken? Or they're like, my milkweed isn't up yet. Is it dead? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like every year more and more people are emailing that because we obviously just have more and more previous clients every year. So, two things. One is if you're like the business owner, you know, like leave yourself some extra wiggle room for these types of inquiries, because they're just going to come up, and it's just, this is the stuff that like, if you haven't given yourself some extra time, you know, this is like what I was doing at like, I would like wake up at 4 a.m. and just like do 2 hours of email before like starting my day. And that happened for like far, you know, too long, you know, several years in the beginning, because I just wasn't prepared enough and didn't realize that that was going to be happening. So, because you know, you're just like out in the field all day. Like, when are you going to respond to all these people? When are you going to go fix this water issue? When are you going to go blah blah blah? So building in that time. Oh, there was another thing that kind of came to me there that now I'm.
Well, Matt, I wonder if now, like, just to give people a vision of how you've worked with that, like, do you hand those questions off to Haley, our maintenance lead, if people have
Oh,
like,
that helps answer that question.
Right, yeah.
Well, basically, yeah, another way that I've addressed this a little bit is like trying to get people on as maintenance clients from the beginning, you know, letting them know like, hey, really, like not that, basically in our closeout email, we're messaging people and saying, if you need support, you know, with your Foodscape moving forward, here's what our maintenance plan looks like. You know, we can customize it to meet your needs. Because a lot of times, like, we want to go to people's homes like every month. That's like the dream, because then we can have a really good grasp on it. But a lot of these people, if we can just do 2 visits a year, like kind of closing and opening, then they don't need to worry about like annoying us with all this stuff. Like, we're just going to be there for those first, you know, for 1 or 2 visits a year. You know, even 1 visit is worth it if we can get them on. We call them, you know, end of year clients only. And it's like, we go close down their garden, we take down their irrigation, we mulch, we cut things back that need to be cut back. And we're in conversation with the client, and it just keeps that relationship going. And so then you know, we can, you know, say, hey, you know, do you need us to come back in the spring for something? Like, staying on their radar is just so valuable. And them, you know, vice versa. Like, you're on their radar and they're on yours. And then not losing that connection is so great, especially if you have a maintenance manager. Then like somebody else beside you, maybe the business owner, knows what's going on at that property. And that's huge. It's like, if you're the only person who's really been there and is like the only mastermind behind that job site, then you've got to go deal with the problem, because you can't be explaining all these things to somebody who's never been there. But if somebody has familiarity, then it becomes really valuable, to just do those maintenance visits. So those clients, you know, don't really annoy us who are maintenance clients, because we're going there anyway. They're just like, oh, you're coming out next week. Can you look at this?
yeah. Another thing I see you guys do, which seems maybe like a no-brainer that everybody does, is I see you like make a lot of internal videos for people on the staff and save them in the client folder. So you're doing a tour that's just for the crew. So you're like, this was a problem here, we planted this here. And like, I always learn a lot watching those little 2-minute videos that help bring everybody on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing we're trying to get better at is making plant videos at the end of an installation. So we walk through and make a, like, and we ground truth what actually was in the design, right? It's like, you know, we may have listed like in the design that we were going to plant, you know, X apple here, but it ended up being a different variety. And so how do we know that it's a Liberty apple? You know, the tag may not be there years later, but if we make a little video tour of like, we planted this Liberty apple, here's this, you know, peach, here's this, we planted a whole bunch of coreopsis in this area. Then if you go back and you're like, whoa, all this coreopsis died, you know, and then they know like, this is the plant that died, coreopsis. Let's not replant that one there. Maybe let's try something else next time.
Yeah. Matt, I have another question. Like, I wonder as a business owner how you deal with turnover, because like every season we have been having new people, like these part-timers, and like just training new people is like so intense. And so I wonder if you have advice or wisdom about if you've cracked that code. It's hard.
You know, I would say I've become kind of unapologetic about like hiring the best candidate that I can. Meaning that we're not like, you know, this is, I can only just speak from my experience because I have like almost some embarrassment saying this, but I'm not trying to like hire the most eager beaver and be like, you're dreaming of like working at a foodscaping company, like we'll come train you. Like, come on, like I'll show you how to do everything. I'm trying to find somebody who already knows how to do everything. And even with that, I'm going to have to show them a million things, because nobody, even the most experienced gardener or even the most experienced carpenter, like there's a huge learning curve to doing what we do. You know, this is a unique profession. Even so, like, I am definitely, yeah, I think that answers that question. But I will say that hiring admin help, you know, is so great. We have had, you know, obviously Lindsay, like you've been helpful in that role, and we have Jess on our team now, and having somebody who can help with like some of the, you know, writing of the job description and posting and organizing resumes and helping setting up interviews and helping to get back to people who you don't hire, like all that stuff is just so taxing. And ultimately, you know, unless you don't have the business like coming in, if you're like the design and salesperson, you know, business owner, your time is you can't replicate your job. Like you cannot delegate a lot of the things that you're doing. So delegating the things that you can is key to profitability, like making money, because the highest value you can provide to your company is like meeting with clients, getting the jobs, making it happen.
Yeah. Alan, you've got a question? Thanks, Matt. That was a great answer.
Yeah, I have a like a twofold, two-part question. First, like, well, I'm speaking like from the food forest abundance space. Like we wanna turn a little bit our focus in our business towards, doing more maintenance. I think we focused a lot on like getting like new clients. So my first part of the question is, how much of your guys' business is kind of like recurring customers and maintenance, and how much is it like new installs? So that's one. And then so I feel like there should be on our side of things more maintenance. So the second part of that question would be, and I think like spring is a good time for it, how do you build in, or how do you follow up during spring to actually get these more like maintenance jobs moving forward, right? So kind of like these like recurring. When I did like environmental consulting work, you know, there was always a theme, which was like getting work from your current clients. It's like easier than trying to always get new clients. So, you know, I'm trying to replicate that model with Food Forest Abundance. So yeah, I just wanted to hear you guys' experience around that.
Well, I think that the answer to the question of like how much of our business is maintenance and how much is install is it's like two areas that as time goes on, it's like installs are way up here and maintenance is way down here. And then every year we move closer into balance. And so now we're like 8 years in and we have like way more like installs and maintenance. But at first it was like installs we had, because we're not doing maintenance for like just random people. We're doing maintenance for clients that we've installed because they're bought in with us. They know us. They trust us. We know what happened on their site. We planted all the plants. So that's I don't think you can start off with tons of maintenance unless you're like mow grass, right? Because that's like that model. That was the first part of your question. Now I'm blanking on the second part of your question. Oh, basically, I would actually say that spring is the worst time to do maintenance in our climate, because spring is by far and away the time when demand for new installations is the highest. So I am trying to do as little maintenance as possible in the spring so that the other 9 months of the year, when people are not like bursting at the seams with excitement to put in a new garden, I have work, right? So and I am contacting people as soon as I send them an invoice for their new installation. I'm immediately selling them a maintenance plan. And then over the winter, not the spring, over the winter, I'm sending out a newsletter, to everybody saying, hey, if you want to get, support for your Foodscape this year, then now's the time to get on our maintenance calendar. The last thing I want to do is go into spring and have to schedule a new person into our maintenance calendar. I want to be able to like have things mapped out, because if it, I'm hiring people, I got to figure out labor. Like if I'm having to just figure out maintenance like on the go, and I don't know how many maintenance clients I have and what frequency I'm going to be visiting those maintenance clients, then how can I hire? Like, how can I know if I should invest in a trailer? If I need this information going into the year in the winter, so that I can be properly prepared for the year ahead with trucks and with staff.
Great.
Sounds good. Yeah. It's I was thinking about like the excitement of the people. That makes sense. Yeah, a follow-up question from that is like, what is an offering of a maintenance plan? I guess what do you normally say there?
Yeah. I mean, what do I literally like? What am I typing in the email kind of thing?
Well, what are you offering? Are you offering like a package of
Yeah.
so many visits a month, or
I'm reading the client. Like like you need to read the client, right? Is this a very experienced gardener who is working 20 hours a week, and the rest of the week like they're at home and they're able to help manage? Is this somebody who's completely clueless? Are they a doctor with 3 kids and they're working 60 hours a week, so they've got money, they're really busy? So I send them, we have a thing called our maintenance program. I mean, I'm happy to just bring it up. If I can see if this.
Matt, I'm giving you a heads up that we've got like 5 minutes left, and I want to say about the mentorship.
Got it. I'm gonna just bring this up since I'm already invested.
Okay.
So this is, now I got a screen share again, right?
Yes.
Are you able to see this?
Yeah.
So
you-
this is just our maintenance program. It's just very simple. This is our, and we'll change this to meet the client. So it's custom foodscaping will provide X number of maintenance visits from the start of the year to the end of the year when appropriate. Here's what the visits will here's what we'll do. You know, here's our pricing. Here's the way, you know, our little like our costs and stuff like that. And so in the case, you know, for that doctor client, Alan, I'm saying custom foodscaping will provide monthly maintenance visits from, you know, February 2024 to December 2024. And that's it. And for some people, it'll be like quarterly, and it'll be like, we'll provide quarterly maintenance visits. So I'm kind of reading them, and then they might come back and say, you know, I really don't think I even need quarterly. Like just twice a year is fine. And I'm like, okay, fine. You know, just so you know, like we may not be able to mulch your yard, you know, or whatever. Like we can wait for them to respond, but I usually will make a recommendation because based on what I think the landscape needs.
Great. Amazing. This makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, y'all. Oh, Lucy, did you want to hop in?
Can I just ask one quick follow-up question?
Yeah, for sure.
When you're saying that you do as little spring maintenance as possible, does that mean that when you're getting those calls for maybe recurring clients that aren't on a set maintenance schedule for an April 1st start date, like come do my spring cleanup, you know, all the kind of standard spring cleanup tasks that we've been taking on because at our age, you know, it is work and whatever else. Are you telling them like we don't come until mid-May to do spring cleanup? So like how are you navigating that piece?
I'm really trying to get ahead of that and do it in the winter. I want people like, I want to do that in December, January, February. And like, you know, the only thing that is really hard to do at that point is like cutting back of perennials that we don't want to cut back, so that we can leave those perennials over the winter like natives. But everything else, like I want to prep your garden in the winter so that you don't, so I can have work over the winter. And even though it's cold, like if there's not snow on the ground, then I can prep a garden, you know, if the ground's not frozen. And so I'm basically telling those people I'm sorry. Like because if somebody calls us on April 1st, like we're booked. That's us. If you have space in your calendar, like great, obviously take on that spring cleanup but in an ideal scenario, we're doing it over the winter so that we can build new gardens in the spring and get as many maintenance clients lined out for the year as possible. And because that is what's going to keep us busy in July when everyone's on vacation and no one's calling and everybody's at camp and all, like, you know, the things that like cause a huge slowdown in new business. How are we going to stay busy? Well, we need people who've already done installs with us to keep us afloat.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any last questions before I close us down for the night? Thank you all so much for coming. We had a small but mighty group tonight. And yeah. Oh, we didn't even do this.
Oh, our icebreaker.
We had an icebreaker of what your go-to karaoke song is.
Oh, we'll use it for next time.
Yeah. I will just say that if you're not familiar, we do have a mentorship course coming up that's starting on June 5th, where basically we're going to get a whole cohort of people together. And what we're really excited about with this is like the Foodscaper, you know, just bringing early stage foodscapers together to create like those bonds and to be able to share each other's experiences. Yes, we're going to guide you through like a bunch of classes. You're going to get every single design and proposal and piece of software that we can possibly share with you. Like that comes with the course. But the main thing is like an awesome group of people that you get to spend the, you know, the 4 months of the mentorship learning about, sharing your successes and failures with, and ultimately creating like, you know, a little Foodscape buddy group, which I'm sure at this point everybody realizes the value of just having that in your life. So we've got a live course, we've got a recorded course, depending on how invested you want to be in it. And yeah, it comes with like all this stuff that we are also selling for, you know, a decent amount of money. So I feel like it can be a really affordable program when you consider everything that comes with it. So that's my little spiel. I am wishing everybody a beautiful rest of your May, and hope to continue connecting with everybody, and love all the questions. Thank you all so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Matt. This was really valuable. Thank you so much. And we'll send the recording out tomorrow. So if you need to catch anything again. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Leslie. Take
Bye.
care. Have a good night.
Bye.